I invite you this evening to enter humbly, to worship deeply, and to leave quietly as we center ourselves around Christ, Christ's peace at the table, Christ's pain in the garden, Christ's suffering on the cross. This is a tenebrae service, also called a service of darkness. It dates back to some of the earliest days of the church. It is in this service that we think about the shadows that Jesus faced, the shadows both literally and metaphorically as he moved his way to the cross. If you'll follow through with the bulletin during the service, you'll see that most of our songs, you'll remain seated. For those that do have asterisks with them, you are asked to stand if you are able, or to stay seated if you would prefer. Let us now lift our voices together as we begin our service. O sacred head now wounded, with grief and shame weighed down, now joyfully surrounded, with thorns thy glory crown. How will In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become the children of God. Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Those who believe in him are not condemned, but those who do not believe are condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and people love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For all who do evil hate the light, and do not come to the light, so that their deeds may not be exposed. But those who do what is true come to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that their deeds have been done in God. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." But he answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one to have not been born." Jesus, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." Jesus replied, "You have said so." And while they were eating, Jesus took the bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave portions to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat, for this is my body." Then he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you. This is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of the fruit of this vine again until I drink it new in the kingdom of heaven." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. I invite you, friends, to come forward. Take your portion of bread and wine, knowing that Christ has prepared it for you. For any who don't want to come forward or are physically unable to come forward, an usher will bring them to your seat. Please now come and feast on this meal which Christ has prepared for us this very night. Please take the cup as you have received it.
Bread of heaven, on thee we feed, for thy flesh is meat indeed. Ever may our souls be fed with this true and living bread, day by day with strength supplied, through the life of him who died.
Jesus went with them to the place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me. I am going a little farther." And he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "So you could not stay awake with me for 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." sharing Paschal bread and wine, verses 2, 3, 4. In a grove of olive trees, while he was still speaking, suddenly a crowd came, and the one called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, "Judas, is it with a kiss that you are betraying the Son of Man?" When those who were around him saw what was coming, they asked, "Lord, should we strike with the sword?" Then one of them struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his right ear. Jesus said, "No more of this." And he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple police, and the elders who had come to him, "Have you come out with swords and clubs as if I were a bandit? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay your hands on me. But this is your hour, and power is in the darkness." As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. Now at the festival, he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone that they asked for. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. Then he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas to them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish for me to do with this man that you call the King of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "Why, what evil has he done?" But they shouted back all the more, "Crucify him!" So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and after flogging Jesus, had him handed over to be crucified. As they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A great number of people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and breasts that never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. And the people stood by, watching. But the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him that read, "This is the King of the Jews." From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once, one of them ran and got a sponge and filled it with sour wine and put it on a stick and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether or not Elijah will save him." Then Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and breathed his last. Now a responsive prayer from Psalm 22. I invite you to read all portions as well as sing with us the song that is in the bulletin. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? From the words of my groaning, my God, I cry by day, and you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors trusted. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you offspring of Jacob, glorify him. Stand in awe of him, all you offspring of Israel. For he did not despise or abhor the affliction of the afflicted. He did not hide his face from me, but heard when I cried to him.
Surrounded me howling, criminal gangs approach and attack. My hands and my feet they are tearing, all of my bones can be easily seen. My God, why have you forsaken me?
The poor shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever. For dominion belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linen cloth and laid him in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. Then he rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb, and he went away.